Thank you, Kristine. That is so interesting. I am absolutely fascinated. I'm absolutely horrified by the idea of mining these tens of thousands of years old trees for furniture. And talk about a non-renewable resource. And we have a bunch of questions that I want to take. And in the meantime, Mackenzie's going to find the link to that really interesting YouTube documentary. She's going to put it in the chat so you guys can click on that too. It'd be a great thing to watch with the family. Okay, so we have a lot of great questions. Could you just remind people, first of all, how did this forest actually get uncovered so you found that it existed?
Right. So it was a fisherman back in 2004, just after Hurricane Ivan had come through. He was out with his fish finder and started getting hits. So he stopped and started fishing it. And he fished it for about 8 years before telling anybody. So I guess probably they were like chatting at the dive shop and it mentioned, yeah, there's this spot, there's fish there all the time, and asked one of the divers to go out and check it out. And when they went down to the sea floor, it was just covered in stumps. So at that point, the Ben Raines, who made the documentary, he's an environmental reporter in Mobile, Alabama. So he started writing stories about it. That's how I found out about it, was from a Facebook post that talked about swimming with these trees offshore in 60 foot of water. And I'm thinking 60 foot of water, global sea level curve, that's 10,000 years ago. So I started emailing him and he's like, yeah, come dive it with me. So that's how I got started on it. So that was back in 2012 when I first found out about it. But Ben has been really instrumental in preserving the site. He's the one who convinced his congressman to write the bill, and we worked with them on putting the boundaries that we want to protect. We've worked with the Army Corps of Engineers as well to protect the site, because it is a secret. You'll notice I did not put exact latitude and longitude on any of my slides. The site, the exact location, is a secret, and that is to protect it, because over the years, Ben and I have been contacted by people who want to log it for the cypress, because cypress wood is very valuable. And people will go into rivers and find the sinker cypress. And that, I think they think the same thing is out there. And it's like, no, it's the stumps. It's not logs. We don't have big logs, but it's the stumps. And the stumps are not as useful for making furniture. But yeah, we've had people over time contact us and want to know where it is, but the actual site is a secret.
Wow, that is so cool. It's like a treasure hunt.
Yes. And I did not mention this, we actually have another site that's about 1.5 miles to the east where we know we have stumps. There's also a site south of Dauphin Island, so that's on the Mississippi side of the Mobile Bay, where Southern Miss was coring and they hit wood, and it's about the same depth as where we're finding wood. And then in Florida, after Hurricane Michael went through, I had people from Florida Fish and Wildlife contact me because one of their sites where there was a shipwreck, Hurricane Michael moved the shipwreck and it scoured the seafloor. And where it scoured, there was tree stumps. And these are these are out at 100 foot of water.
Oh, wow.
So they're going to be even younger than what we have at the Alabama site. So we're starting to find trees all over the place. And anytime somebody finds a tree out in the ocean, I get a phone call. So I'm collecting these sites all over.
And it's so cool because, as you pointed out, and I just want to emphasize this in case anybody missed it, tree ring records give you annual records of climate. Annual. Yeah. And we get annual records from tree rings today, going back, I think the oldest tree ring records continuously go back about 10 or 12,000 years on land, right? And then we have ice core records that go back hundreds of thousands of years, but they aren't always annual because it depends on how fast snow accumulates. So to find an annual record that is 40,000 years old or 50,000 years old or even 100,000 years old is just absolutely mind-blowing, because it actually tells you about the weather back then. So not just the average conditions and how they were changing over decades, but it can tell you the ups and downs of the daily weather, which, as you talked about, can tell us about things like El Nino. It can tell us about hurricanes back then.
Right.
We can learn so much that is just absolutely mind-boggling. So I feel like we are going to need regular updates, Kristine.
Yes. No, it's like that decadal variability is like when we first looked at it, we're thinking Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation.
Yeah.
So it's
But,
just
but there's some research that shows that maybe that doesn't even exist. So that's going to be
exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
So
So many
we actually have we have quite a few questions. So let me just get to a couple quick, if you don't mind. Um, uh, what type of events cause the sediment core to be eroded? Because you talked about how there was erosion happening, mixing up the layers. What would cause it erosion?
So this will be because it's on land as rivers go through. Um, from precipitation events, flood events will move sediment off. So land normally erodes and all of that sediment moves out to the ocean. So
Oh,
this land just naturally erodes. So,
okay.
and but that's what's so interesting about this site. When we got those older dates, we're like, wow, it went through all of the ice age to the last glacial maximum through the whole deglacial, and it's still there and it did not get eroded. So it's these special little deep depressions that were in these backwater swamps is where all of this is being preserved.
Okay. So there was actually something to it that kind of kept it safe when everything else got scoured off.
Exactly.
Okay, so now I have a question that I'm curious about because I saw that article that you showed a screenshot of that talked about what we can learn from the trees. And there was something about how we could learn about cures for diseases from the trees. Explain that.
So that's what the shipworm guys are working on. So shipworms, they can digest cellulose. So they make these unique chemicals that you don't find in any other organisms.
Mhm.
So because this wood is so old and well preserved, their hypothesis was, would this be colonized by shipworms that we've never seen before or have been identified? And so that's what they were looking for. And that's pretty much what they're finding is these new species of shipworms that make these new unique chemicals. And they're looking at these chemicals to see, can they be used for medicinal purposes?
Oh my goodness. Okay, that is just too cool. So the world is an amazing place. There's always new things to discover. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. This was so interesting. So anybody, if you missed this or you want to share it with anybody, the recording is going to be up on our YouTube page. It's going to be up on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page. You can watch it. You can share it. We will invite you back in the future whenever there's a really cool update. Love the videos. And don't forget, there's a documentary in the chat that you can actually click on if you want to know more.